How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of our Versus series. My name's Rudy Luttrell.
I'm Tyler Apple.
And today we have for you Racdos Sac versus
Mardu Midrange.
I'll go first. This deck is all about synergy. The deck wants to abuse cards like the Oven and Deadly Dispute to gain an advantage against the opponent. Otherwise, it's just blanket good Rakdos stuff. Just in a slightly more aggressive low-to-the-ground shell.
And is this a stock list, Rudy, or is it very much, is there any small pieces of spice that we need to be aware of?
Absolutely not. This is actually just the most generic. Now, this is the list.
Yes, it is.
This is the universally accepted list.
It's been evolving, and we've reached peak evolution.
Yep.
All right. Run over to my side here where there a lot more spice exists. So in our first video, we were testing several different cards. We were trying out discard outlets for the Lilianas. And as I tested it out again this last weekend and made some changes, I realized we're kind of just turning into Mardu Control, I guess, is probably a really good way to think of the deck in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It's looking that way.
Otherwise, we are running good Rakdos cards just like last time, but we trimmed 2 drops for more disruption and more removal. Yep, though that's the major changes to the deck, and we look forward to seeing you soon in the actual gameplay.
All right, let's get into it.
Yep.
Welcome to today's match. Tyler won the die roll and is on a mulligan to 5, and Rudy is on a mulligan to 6. Here's Tyler's starting hand, and he puts a Shieldred and a Blood Crypt at the bottom. Here's Rudy's starting hand, he puts a Blood Crypt to the bottom. To start off, Ty plays a Black Cleave Cliffs and passes. Rudy plays a Hive of the Eye Tyrant, plays a Thoughtseize, taking a Bone Crusher and dropping to 18. Tyler plays a Den of the Bugbear and passes. Rudy pays 2 life to play Blood Crypt, then casts a Bloodtithe Harvester, gets a blood token, and passes. Tyler plays a Caves of Koilos, then casts a Fable of the Mirror Breaker, gets a Goblin Shaman, then passes. Rudy plays a Black Cleave Cliffs, he targets Tyler's Goblin Shaman with a Fatal Push, attacks Tyler for 3, then he casts another Bloodtithe Harvester, getting another blood token, then passes. Tyler draws, triggering his Fable, he discards a Sundown Pass and a Thoughtseize, drawing 2 cards. Then he casts a Thoughtseize, taking Rudy's Deadly Dispute, plays a Caves of Koilos, and casts another Fable of the Mirror Breaker, getting another Goblin Shaman and passing the turn. Rudy uses a blood token to discard a land and draw a card. He then pushes the Goblin token and attacks Tyler for 6, then passes. Tyler draws, triggering both of his Fables, flipping one and choosing not to discard, then simply passes the turn. At his end step, Rudy uses his last blood token to discard a Witch's Oven and draws. Rudy draws, goes to combat immediately, attacking Tyler for 6, who blocks a Harvester with a Goblin Shaman, taking 3, and Rudy casts a Fable of the Mirror Breaker during his second main phase. At his end step, Tyler targets Rudy's Goblin Shaman with a Fatal Push. Tyler draws, triggering his Fable, flipping it, then plays a Needlespire Pathway, animates his Den of the Bugbear, and attacks Rudy, making a hasty Goblin and getting in for 4. Rudy draws, triggering his Fable, pitching an Unlucky Witness and a land, drawing 2 cards. He plays a Blightstep Pathway, then he goes to combat and attacks with the Harvester. Tyler trades his flipped Fable for the Harvester. Rudy buys Gigantha, then passes the turn. Tyler draws, goes right to combat, animates the Den, and attacks, making another hasty Goblin, then passes. Rudy draws for the turn, flips his Fable, plays a Mountain, then casts Gigantha, and passes the turn. Tyler casts his third Fable of the Mirror Breaker, gets a Goblin Shaman, and passes the turn. Rudy channels Sokenzin, getting 2 Hasted Spirits, then casting Thoughtseize, revealing Tyler only has a land in hand. Attacks with Gigantha, who gets chumped by a Goblin token, then he passes the turn. Tyler draws, triggering his Fable, he discards a land and draws a card. Then he goes to combat, attacks with the Goblin Shaman, getting a treasure token. Rudy copies the Spirit token with his flipped Fable, and double blocks the Shaman. After damage, Tyler targets Rudy's flipped Fable with a Fatal Push, then passes the turn. Rudy goes to combat, animates his Hive of the Eye Tyrant, then attacks, triggering his Hive, and exiles a Bone Crusher out of Tyler's grave. Before damage, Tyler plays a Wandering Emperor and exiles the attacking Hive, both losing 2 life for casting the Emperor and gaining 2 life after the exile. Rudy plays a Blightstep Pathway, then passes the turn. Tyler down-ticks his Emperor, making a Samurai, casts a Liliana of the Veil, taking 1 from his caves. He upticks his Liliana, then passes the turn. Rudy goes to combat with Gigantha. Tyler feeds it a Goblin token, then Rudy casts a Mayhem Devil and passes the turn. Tyler upticks his Emperor, giving a Samurai a +1/+1 counter. Downticks Liliana, Rudy sacrifices his Spirit token, triggering the Devil, who pings Tyler for 1. Tyler then goes to combat, animates his Den, copies his Samurai token with a flipped Fable, and attacks with everything, killing his opponent.
KO.
Going into sideboards, Tyler sides out 4 Blood Tithe Harvesters, 3 Liliana of the Veil, and 3 Vanishing Bursts. In their place will be 2 Temporary Lockdown, 2 Go Blink, 1 Hitotsuku Consumes All, 2 Reckoner Bankbusters, 1 Unlicensed Hearse, 1 Extinction Event, and 1 Duress. Looking at Rudy's sideboard, he takes out 4 Thoughtseize, brings in 1 Abrade, 1 Kolaghan's Command, 2 Ob Nixilis Adversary, and 1 Unlicensed Hearse. For Game 2, Rudy chooses to be on the play and neither player mulligans. Here's a look at Tyler's hand, and here's a look at Rudy's hand. To start it off, Rudy pays 2 life to play an untapped Blood Crypt, then plays a Cauldron Familiar, draining 1 life from Tyler, and passes. Tyler plays Blightstep Pathway and casts a Thoughtseize, taking Rudy's Deadly Dispute and losing 2 life. Rudy plays a Takenuma, casts a Blood Tithe Harvester, getting a blood token, then attacks Tyler with Cauldron Familiar, and he passes. Tyler casts a Duress, takes Rudy's Kolaghan's Command, he plays another Blightstep Pathway, then passes. Rudy goes right to combat and attacks. Before damage, Tyler targets Blood Tithe Harvester with a Fatal Push. Rudy casts Cauldron Familiar, draining 1 more from Tyler, and plays a tapped Hive of the Eye Tyrant before passing the turn. Tyler draws, plays a tapped Godless Shrine, and passes. Rudy draws, casts Mayhem Devil, attacks with his cat, plays Urborg, then passes. Tyler draws, plays a Pillar Verge Pathway, then passes the turn. Rudy draws, goes straight to combat, and attacks with the 2 cats. Before blocks, Tyler casts the Wandering Emperor, down ticks for a Samurai token, and blocks one of the cats. Before damage, Rudy cycles a land using a blood token, triggering his Mayhem Devil and pinging the Samurai for 1 damage. The cat and the Samurai trade and Tyler takes 1. Rudy then plays a Seer Step Pathway, buys Gigantha, and passes the turn. Tyler draws, down ticks the Wandering Emperor for another Samurai token, plays a tapped Godless Shrine, casts a Reckoner Bankbuster, and passes the turn. Rudy goes right into combat, animates his Hive of the Eye Tyrant, and sends the team, triggering his Hive, exiling Duress from Tyler's graveyard. Tyler blocks the cat, and during Rudy's end step uses the Bankbuster to draw a card. Tyler draws for turn, then passes. Rudy goes to turn, animates his Hive, and attacks with both the Hive and the Mayhem Devil. Hive eats an Emperor. Before damage, Tyler casts a Wandering Emperor, down ticks for a Samurai, crews the Reckoner Bankbuster, and blocks the Mayhem Devil. Tyler draws, down ticks the Wandering Emperor to make another Samurai. He attacks with 2 Samurai, then plays a tapped Den of the Bugbear and passes the turn. Rudy draws, casts a very sad Unlicensed Hearse, and passes the turn. Tyler draws, using the Bankbuster on end step. Tyler draws, upticks his Wandering Emperor to put a +1/+1 counter on a Samurai, then attacks for 7. In his second main, he casts a Fabled Dimir Breaker, getting a Goblin Shaman. At his end step, Rudy uses the Hearse to exile 2 cards out of Tyler's graveyard. Then Tyler passes the turn. Rudy draws, plays the Moose, and at Rudy's end step, Tyler draws using the Bankbuster's last activation, also getting a Treasure and a Pilot. Rudy passes. Tyler draws, triggering his Fable, discarding Extinction Event and Thoughtseize, drawing 2 cards. Tyler upticks the Wandering Emperor, placing another counter on a separate Samurai, then he cruises Bankbuster with a Pilot and attacks with the team. The Goblin Shaman makes a treasure token, and before damage, Rudy destroys the Bankbuster with a Fatal Push and blocks a Samurai, taking 8 damage. Tyler in his second main phase casts Shieldred the Apocalypse. Rudy goes to turn and dies to Shieldred trigger.
KO.
I mean, you drew the other Fable anyway, so it was like 3 Fables. The second one, I think I could handle, but the third one?
The third one did a lot of
A
work.
little bit too much.
Stalled. Hi guys, thanks for joining us in the archives again. Mardu Midrange versus Racdos Sac. Coming at this from the Mardu side, I knew I had really good tools for this matchup, but this is why I like the deck, is because of all the exile effects, all the ability to play on both turns and interact with that cat, or make it at least respect that it could possibly happen. That felt really good going into this matchup. Also, just feels really good to win when you mold to 5. That's just a good feeling.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Rudy's done it to me multiple times.
The Thoughtseize on 1 too. It's pretty good.
Yeah, Fable's a card.
Well, yeah, that's the thing about the Mardu deck, is that you play the 2 best Planeswalkers in Pioneer,
Yeah.
being Wandering Emperor and Fable the Mirror Breaker.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to be said that like I didn't get the combo namesake of the deck, but sometimes that just doesn't happen.
Right.
And when it doesn't happen, you have to respect the fact that it didn't.
As far as cool plays that were lessons that we learned as we played, a cool play I was happy with was when we turned the corner. So viewers, if you don't remember this part, I was down to 6 life, and instead of playing defensively, I decided to activate Den and just hit Rudy back, because he'd already done some damage to himself with his Thoughtseizes and Shocking and Blood Crypts, etc. Because at that time, I could tell he was out of resources, and it was kind of threadbare. And I was like, if he had the more life total you leave your opponent, the more turns they have to live and to draw and to get out of it. And I might be playing kind of a controlling version of mid-range, but I like to hurt people. I like to swing. I want to get into fisticuffs with them. And I don't know. I think that was probably the correct play. I don't think if I'd held back, it would have gotten any better for me.
Manlands are good. Play them. Use them.
It's true. This isn't modern where manlands are almost irrelevant besides Urza Saga.
Yeah.
Manlands do so much work. Noteworthy, we talked about that last week. Rudy won both of his games off of manlands, if we were being 100% honest, last week against Racdos Midrange.
Yeah.
And that drove me to put 2 more into my mana base. I literally cut creatures.
Should absolutely, because like the fact of the matter is, especially in mid-range matchups, you are going to be playing with the top of your deck.
Oh yeah.
And nothing fights better than your lands because they're hard to interact with. They activate exactly when they're non-active until you want them to be active. Yep. They can muddy up your turn 4 and turn 5 when you need that extra mana, but the pros far outweigh the cons.
Oh yeah, absolutely so. Especially these modern ones that don't even enter tapped. All right, guys, thanks for stepping into the archives with us. Before we exit, we'd like to remind you to just make sure to like, subscribe, and check out our website in the description, The Mystic Mentors. Our team looks forward to seeing you soon. Have a great night. Link below.